Hey guys, I'm Justin with Legato Financial Group. Our firm is passionate about helping educate consumers, which is why we're powering the Gaining Interest podcast. The podcast of quick conversations with industry experts on topics that you want to know about, from sports to dining to healthcare and automotive, and really everything in between. It's hosted by one of the greatest local personalities that I've met, that's John Ramsey.
I'll tell you why I love this podcast, because it's all about community. We used to call it water cooler talk, and that no longer exists. But if it's interesting to you, it's interesting to us. We encourage you to tell your friends. As Justin mentioned, we're going to talk about everything under the sun. We will be gaining interest, and we appreciate you watching. Hello and welcome once again to Gaining Interest. It is a show about all things interesting, and certainly there is a topic that is interesting to Kentuckians and now people all over the globe. You may have guessed it, is the topic of American whiskey or bourbon. With me now is Joe Magliocco, and Joe is the president of the very best bourbon whiskey in the world, and I mean that when I say this. Not only is it top shelf in restaurants around the world, it is also admired and applauded around the globe. Joe, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Sure, and how we can now prove that. But first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John. I really am excited to be on here. I just think you're the best interviewer and such a wonderful broadcaster. I'm honored to be here.
I'm honored to call you a friend. Your story is so interesting, and I can't wait to dig into it. But first of all, because it's so relevant right now, Sure. It just happened. Okay, so there's a list that comes out. It is the world's most admired whiskeys in 2023. There's a top 50 list. If you're on that list at all, if you're number 50, you're a fantastic whiskey. You are number 1. This is unprecedented. Talk to me about this honor. And this isn't your average everyday honor. This is something that all people in the spirits industry really admire, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and look, everybody on the list is a great company. But we're just so, our team at Michter is just so thrilled by all of this. Basically, Drinks International does a report every year. They're UK based, and they publish the results from that's the results of an academy of voters, and the voters are whiskey experts, writers, educators, buyers. They can't be affiliated with any brand to be eligible to be a voter. But this is an academy of voters from over 20 countries. So it's kind of like the Academy Award for whiskey. And we were very, very lucky this year. And as I said, our team's so excited. Michter's was voted the most admired whiskey in the world this year. Our predecessors are wonderful brands like distillers like Yamazaki and Springbank. And, it's a list of really, all 50 are just great distillers. But it's very, very special for us. And it's also very special for us because this is the first time that an American whiskey company had ever been voted most admired in the world. And so we're hoping that it not just raises our visibility around the world, but it also hopefully will raise a recognition around the world about all the great whiskey that's being made in the U.S., especially in Kentucky, where 95% of the world's bourbons come from.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Joe, in that I think, of course, in this state and in this country, everyone is familiar with Michter's, and the fact that it is literally top shelf, not only in your restaurants and bars, but to people's taste buds. So, but now it is it's known around the world, and this is recognition for that. So when you have something this prestigious, Joe, how do you aim the bar any higher? How do you put that bar any higher? You know what I'm saying? This is like you're number 1, you're the best. I guess how do you sustain that? That's excellence.
We have a really talented team of people. And, just amazing people. Our master maturation, Andrea Wilson, is also our chief operating officer, our master distiller, Dan McKee, our vice president of production, Matt Bell. We have just phenomenal, I could go on and on. Rick Robinson, has run huge distilleries. So we have an amazing team. All of us, everyone, the people in the bottling line, people that run the forklifts, everybody goes to work every day with the mission of trying, whether we're doing it or not. The goal is to try to make the best American whiskey. We're going to keep trying. We're going to keep doing our best to do it, and hopefully we'll keep producing really good stuff.
In one of our initial conversations, Joe, you said, regardless of time, regardless of money, the goal is the same, the very best American whiskey, correct?
Yes.
How are you able to achieve that? Usually we have stockholders, you have pressure to, hey, you've got to produce a lot, the demand is there, let's jump on it.
Sure.
Your philosophy is different.
There are pluses and minuses to being a privately held company. I've been partners with my two brothers for forever, and One of them unfortunately passed away, and my sister-in-law stepped in, but we're a family business. And I've been told, and our team's been told, whatever you know to do to make the best whiskey possible, don't worry about your cost of goods sold. And that's really a luxury that our team has had, and we really do that. I mean, for example, in 2022, we released no 10-year bourbon. And the 10-year bourbon that was ready to release in 2022, it was actually 13 years old when I tasted it. And just as a reference, you're allowed to put older whiskey than the age statement and the label. You can put older whiskey in the bottle. You can't put younger, obviously.
So if it says 10 year, it could be 12, 13. It just
could be
has
15.
to be 10.
Yeah, it has to be minimum 10 by law. But we let our master of maturation, Andrea Wilson, our master distiller, Dan McKee, we let them decide when a whiskey's ready. And I thought the whiskey was beautiful at 13 years old. They both said to me, if we could hold it back one more year, it's going to go from like really, really good to just unbelievable. And so we let them do that. Now, if I had the pressure that that a lot of people in my position would have, maybe in another company, 10 years in a day, you bottle the whiskey. As I said, the goal is to try to produce the greatest American whiskey, regardless of cost. And because of our ownership, we were able to do things like that. So we held it back. We released none in 2022, which is economically painful. But when we released it in 2023, the reception was really phenomenal. And Dan and Andrea were right.
My friends applauded you on that decision after we tried it. It is excellent whiskey.
Very, very kind. Thank you.
Your commitment to excellence, I know a little bit about you and your family, Joe. Your commitment to excellence is in your DNA. You have the spirits background. Tell me a little bit about your background, because that's something that you got on us. Your family feels this really strong commitment. If you're going to do something, do it to the very highest level, correct?
Absolutely. We're selling, fortunately we've grown, and fortunately we sell around the U.S. and we sell to 65 plus export markets at this point. But we're still not a huge company. And so I always tell our people, we don't have to do everything, but the things we do, we have to do really well. If you go to Fort Nelson, which is, we have 2 distilleries in Louisville. We have Michter's Shively in the Shively section of Louisville. Then we also have Michter's Fort Nelson. That's the one that's open to the public. It's right downtown. It's a wonderful place. Hope people visit. Love to have visitors. It's opposite Louisville Slugger Bat Factory, in downtown Louisville. It's in a beautifully renovated, beautiful old historic building. And when you go there, we have educational tours. We have the pot still system. There's a lot of history to Michter's that maybe we'll cover later, but we have a pot still system that's legendary from the old Michter's in Pennsylvania. Michter's heritage traces back to 1753 to a little Pennsylvania distillery. We have a cocktail bar there, and it's really is a world-class cocktail bar. The drinks are curated by Dr. Dave Wondrich. Dave Wondrich was selected by Oxford University a couple of years ago to edit the Oxford University first ever Guide to Spirits and Cocktails, and he curates our cocktail program, which is amazing. And so we have amazing cocktails, but other than like a little bit of munchies, we have no food. And that's because, again, we don't try to do everything, but what we do, we really want to try to do as well as possible.
Yeah, keep the main thing the main thing.
Exactly.
If you want to experience the excellence that I'm referring to, really promise yourself, do this. Do yourself a favor, do your family and friends a favor. Fort Nelson, downtown, right there on Museum Row. It is a beautiful building, and the experience is truly memorable. Okay. I want to talk a little bit, because I find this part fascinating as well. How you acquired Michter's, why the desire for that name, and where it was and what it is now. I know that's very broad, but let's get to it here.
I was very familiar with Michter's because my dad, Tony, was the Michter's distributor in New York. I grew up in the wine and spirit business, and worked in the warehouse, loading cases. I worked as a helper on a truck, Christmas vacation, summer vacations, like that. My first white-collar job in the industry was during college break. I was tasked with closing out Michter's gold-plated King Tut minis. And they were expensive 50 ml miniatures in gold-plated ceramic things. And the King Tut exhibit in those days was going around the country and was a really popular. Big deal. And Michter's apparently had licensed it for spirits. And and the company was stuck with them. And my job was to close them out, and so I got pennies on a dollar for them. But I became very familiar with Michter's history. Michter's has an amazing history. It was America's first whiskey company. It was founded in 1753, not in Kentucky, but in Pennsylvania. And it was founded by a guy, John Schenck, in the 1800s. It was Abe Bomberger bought it and changed the name to, guess what, Bombergers. And it wasn't until the 1950s that the Pennsylvania Distillery, same one, became known as Michter's. And Lou Foreman, no relation to our friends at Brown Forman, Lou Foreman was running it then and was the main owner. And a lot of people think Michter's was a German name. It's not. Lou had 2 children, Michael and Peter, put the names together, Michter's. So that was the 1950s. They made some really wonderful whiskeys. Unfortunately, the American whiskey business went through just a terrible decline in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And in 1989, Pennsylvania Michter's failed. It went bankrupt. And then in the 1990s, I was tasked with starting a liquor supplier company. I had Chatham Imports, which is the parent company of Michter's nowadays. And I had nothing to sell that anybody wanted. All cats and dogs and, things that nobody would buy. Steve Ziegler, who's been with me for over 30 years running our sales, who's brilliant. Steve and I both like whiskey. We're not whiskey makers, but we both like whiskey. And, American rye at that point was basically dead, and nobody was buying it. And we said, rather than come out with a 4 millionth vodka, because that was huge and still is huge. Rather than come out with 4 million vodka, that all the big companies are doing, who needs it from a little company? Maybe we should pick like a really little niche, and what's too big really for the big companies to focus on. Maybe we could just sell a little bit, and what would be nothing for them would be meaningful for us. And so we decided to come out with rye whiskey, American rye whiskey. The distributors we were calling on said, you're 2 nice young guys, but you're really dumb. Nobody's to buy rye. You better do.
I know better.
You better do bourbon too. So we wound up our first 2 SKUs, first 2 entries were 10-year bourbon and 10-year rye as Michter's. But when it came time for to name it, I was familiar with the history of Michter's since I'd sold Pennsylvania Michter's myself. I'd also bartended in college and loved Michter's. I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could acquire it? And it was actually in 1997 able to acquire the brand for $245.
$245.
Yes, we acquired the brand. It's correct to say we acquired the brand for $245 in 1997.
It's a great American story because the history of Michter's was over. You revived it, not with a monument, but with a product now that is considered one of the most respected, one of the most desirable whiskeys on the planet. Number one, by the way, folks, I'm reminding you. So there's a brilliance involved here. So why did you know, or when did you decide? Was this epiphany of, I've got to move this to Louisville, Kentucky? It was formerly in Pennsylvania.
Well, I mean, that was a decision I really kind of agonized by more than I should have over. But it was a really big decision. Think about it. Michter's has this amazing Pennsylvania history. Pennsylvania is a wonderful state, and it's a populous state too. So it's a state where you probably sell a lot of whiskey. There were a lot of things to argue for Pennsylvania, but I was working with one of my mentors in the business at the time. By that time, he was an older gentleman, but he was a wonderful man. And he was one of my advisors was Dick Newman, and Dick had previously run Old Taylor, Old Crow, and Old Grandad for National Distillers, and later he became president of Austin Nichols, in those days Wild Turkey. And so he knew the business tremendously well, and he was consulting with me. And he said, Joe, if you want to be one of the best, you got to play with the best. And he said, you will have whiskey resources in Kentucky that you just won't have anywhere else in the United States. And he was right.
You found that to be true.
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, look, Pennsylvania's a great state, and they're making some very nice whiskeys in other states. But I personally believe that just nobody has the whiskey resources Kentucky does. I mean, it's part of the fabric of the culture. You have Vendome. I mean, the greatest American still maker, is 10 minutes from our distillery.
So when you say resources, though, that's not only ingredients, stills, pots, copper, all this. You mean also people.
Totally. It's all, you know what? Ultimately, any company is all about the people. I mean, that's one thing as I've gotten older and, worked in different positions and worked with a lot of different, great companies. Ultimately, any company is all about the people. And, when it's the people who make the stills, it's the people, who hook up the pipes and the electricity to make your distillery work. It's the people who engineer. It's the people who are yeast experts. It's the people who know how to pick a bottle that where the top isn't a little bit off. And so your label goes on right. It's a bit of everything.
This could be, though, Joe, I've spent enough time with you, and I learn every time I'm with you, regardless, you may not even be aware of it, but this could be a master class in how to lead, because I've talked to Andrea Wilson, who is in charge of maturation. I've
Yes.
talked to your master distiller, Dan McKee. They love working for you. You're a very humble guy, but talk about the culture that you have developed at Michter's and that everyone there has embraced.
As I said, it's all about the people. We're very, very fortunate. We really have, I think, just an incredible working group, an incredible team. Paul Packold, Forbes magazine years ago called him America's foremost foremost spirits, not whiskey, expert. He said that the Michter's production team is a 1927 Yankees lineup, if anybody's a baseball fan, but that's a legendary one that had
That's a nice analogy.
Ruth and Lazari and
Yes.
Garrick and stuff like that. So we have, and look, I'm not a technical production person. I've been around long enough that I know a little bit. We have really, really good people, and we really try to hire people that we like, and people that we feel are good people, and people that we feel is serious. If somebody sort of is maybe not a team player, we've tried not to hire that type of person. And everything's important. The grain, picking the grain's critical, distilling it's critical, the maturation's critical. But we have great people on the bottling line. If they don't watch it, and if they put out stuff, they could put a great whiskey in the bottle, but if the label's a little crooked or looks sloppy or something like that, people go in the store and say, "Oh, that can't be that good." I mean, every single person's job is important at Michter's.
So in a way, and I know I'm stretching a little bit, but in a way, the flavor of your whiskey and the quality of your whiskey is directly involved with the people who make it. I mean, the character and integrity counts.
Totally.
The character counts. The teamwork counts, because it
Totally.
does. You put a team together and it produces a bottle like this and receives awards like the one you just received. I mean, the #1 most admired whiskey in the world. Those kind of things. So it does work. It all works. There's something else, another combination that you have when it comes to, it seems to me, the maturation, the whole process. Sure. It's a mixture of old school and new school. I mean, I've seen these copper kettles. Is it fair to say, though, some really recent technology is involved as well? So it's a little mixture of both?
Totally. In one sense, we're kind of a traditional Kentucky distiller. We don't do wine barrel finishes and stuff like that. On the other hand, we're always experimenting and we're always trying stuff. I mean, in 2014, we were the first ones to ever do a toasted barrel whiskey. And that's where you take a fully matured whiskey and put it in a second barrel that's been toasted but not charred. And when we did it, we thought it was interesting. We liked it. We had no idea we create a category, but it's created a category. We have very traditional stuff. I mean, Vendome, and by the way, Vendome made the historic still system at Michter's, Pennsylvania, which is a legendary system. Wow. And we were fortunate to be able to buy it and put it in Fort Nelson. So at our Fort Nelson distillery, a smaller distillery, we're distilling with the legendary Pennsylvania system. Some of the Vendome people who built our main system in Michter's Shively, our other distillery, had their grandfathers were the ones who built the Pennsylvania system.
So there was a tie there. There was a natural tie there. Maybe it was meant to be, Joe.
Yeah, very, very much so. So we have very beautiful traditional equipment. At the same time, you go to our lab. We have a high pressure liquid chromatograph. We have a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer. We have equipment that typically smaller distilleries do not have. And we do a lot of. I mean, we have many trained chemists on the staff. And led by Andrea Wilson, who has all these advanced chemistry degrees.
Babe Ruth.
Yeah. I mean, she really is. I mean, she's amazing. Talk about Andrea. I mean, I got to brag about her. I want to pinch myself that I get to work with her. This is a woman. The Kentucky Distillers Association is a great association, very prestigious, and does great work. For over 100 years, and never had a female chair. She's the first woman ever in 100 years to chair the Kentucky Distillers Association. Wow. She's a Bourbon Hall of Famer. I mean, she's amazing. Yeah, yeah, recently, but very, very, very happy about that. It's very nice of them to do that. But I mean, she's really special, and she's a leader. But we use so much cutting edge science and apply that to to traditional whiskey making. So it's kind of like a blend, and and we're always trying new stuff, and sometimes when you try new stuff, sometimes it doesn't turn out very good, so we don't release it. But other times, you try new stuff and like, wow, this is really good.
So even
in
a business that's so old and has such a rich history, it's good to be innovative, and it's okay to be creative, because guess what? We're making great whiskey, and whatever it takes, let's continue to do so. Yeah, and if you create a category like toasted,
yeah,
okay.
Our team in 2013, our team released Michter's Celebration. There were these beautiful blended scotches and beautiful scotches that were really old, and beautiful cognacs that were selling for thousands of dollars a bottle. I mean, amazing stuff. And in 2010, I said to Willie Pratt, who was our first Kentucky master distiller. Unfortunately, Willie passed away. He's a great man. And I said, Willie, could you put together a blend of whiskey that could really rival those and just be like unbelievable? He said, sure, I can. And we were the first ones to do really just a really amazing blend of American whiskey, and package it in a beautiful package, and charge for it. It wound up being, we ended up calling it a sour Kentucky sour mash whiskey, because it was Kentucky sour mash bourbon and Kentucky sour mash rye that Willie blended together. And blending is really interesting because, I used to think, oh, this bourbon's great and this bourbon's great. You put them together, it's gonna be great. No, it could be like a couple that's a really bad mix. So the key is not just finding great whiskeys, but finding great whiskeys that marry well and do well together. And the blend was, extremely, extremely well received. And it's interesting to me now, and there's other companies making wonderful, wonderful stuff in Kentucky and wonderful, wonderful stuff in the United States. And it's great to see the appreciation now. But we're seeing, Michter's Celebration. Some bottles are going for $40,000 a bottle. We recently announced that December 1, we're going to release our 25-year bourbon for the first time in 3 years, and it'll be released December 1. And Brad Jaffe, who's a terrific writer, wrote an article in Bloomberg this week, and he did a little research. Apparently, some of our previous 25-year-old bottles are going for $50,000 a bottle. And again, it's not just us. It really is a sign, which I think is great, of the national and international recognition that American whiskeys can be really just great and rival some of the other world's great spirits.
And when I see some of your peers trying to copy what you're doing, and I know you'd never mention them, I wouldn't either, but with that being said, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, and you have that. Before I let you go, I think this is an important topic for those out there who may collect. You consider yourself a bourbon connoisseur. Okay, this bourbon craze, I remember 20 years ago, there were those who said, I doubt it has legs. I don't think it'll last. And here we go. It seems to me, not only does it have legs, it's growing. I mean, to a rate that's probably hard for you at Michter's to keep up with the demand. The demand is amazing. So, with that being said, what do you see in the future for bourbon? For those out there who collect, or for those who just love bourbon and love the industry for our state, what would you say about the future moving forward?
You never know what's going to happen in the future. But all that being said, we're extremely optimistic. Our team is extremely optimistic about the future of American whiskey and the future of bourbon. It's becoming more and more recognized really around the world, and the market share for American whiskey around the world it's good, but it's not very much compared to Scotch. Scotch is still much bigger around the world. And I think that there's growing recognition in a lot of countries, and I think that, I think social media, the internet, has really helped that a lot.
And you've helped that a lot.
Well, we've tried.
Yes.
We try. And our international team has done just
With these
wonderful,
awards, though, my goodness.
Yeah, our international team's done a wonderful job. Our whole sales team's done a wonderful job. But the economy goes up, the economy goes down, and so life is not a straight line. But we and most of the industry have plans to lay down a lot more whiskey over time. And again, in our case, we have very, very controlled growth. We made a conscious decision that we want our quality to stay at least the same, if anything, get better. So we're not trying to grow the fastest possible. We're trying to grow in a responsible way and where we can really keep the quality super high. But we're expecting growth for the entire industry, and I'm pretty optimistic about it.
Yeah, Michter speaks to excellence, as do you, Joe. I'm serious. You're
very kind.
You do nothing short of excellent in an excellent way and with integrity. So I really appreciate you coming on, Joe. I've enjoyed the conversation so much. Again, Michter's, folks, Fort Nelson, I highly recommend it. If you happen to be in Louisville, then make a visit. It's right there, like you said, right across there from Louisville Slugger.
Bat Factory. It's a great location.
Beautiful.
Science Center there, Fraser History Museum there. It's a wonderful area, and Louisville's a terrific city.
And I tell you what, the cocktails are an experience, so I encourage you to do so. And it doesn't make a bad little holiday Christmas gift either. Once again, Michter's, the very best, top shelf, not only in restaurants and bars, but on your taste buds as well. Joe, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John.
Gaining Interest, powered by Legato Financial Group. We appreciate your attention, and we'll see you next time.